If you are new to our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener, your home for Garden Talk Radio with your hosts Joey and Holly Baird.
Welcome back to the program. You know, in life, when you do anything, having the right tools makes all the difference in the world. Whether you're doing landscaping, or you're doing auto repair, or growing plants indoors, you need to have the right type of light in order to make that happen. And Happy Leaf LED has what you need in order to make that success happen.
This segment is sponsored by Happy Leaf LED grow lights, proudly made in the USA, a grow light for beginners or advanced indoor gardeners. They have universal LED recipe. That means you just turn it on and watch your leafy greens, herbs, and vegetables, any plant really, grow and thrive. It's an anywhere, anytime garden. A professional grade grow light with a home gardener's affordability. No fans, no motors, just plug it in and grow. Find out more and visit happyleaf.com and use code WVG at checkout to save 5% on orders of $50 or more.
So when we talk about starting seeds indoors, I want to start out by saying, no, you do not need a grow light. But grow lights make a tremendous difference in the production of the plants. So when it comes to that, there's some things that we need to know about starting seeds indoors and some things we need to not do when it comes to starting seeds indoors.
Yep, so one thing you want to do is obviously have proper light, like the Happy Leaf LED light, or you could even do something like we did a bay window for a long time.
A west-facing window. Mm-hmm. A south-facing window is preferred. A big bay window would be the ideal preference, but we want to have enough light on these plants. And the reason why is if your plants are leggy, this is a problem. We'll talk about that in a minute. But starting your seeds indoors can be a challenge for so many for a few reasons, and we're going to go over that. Improper light, improper or the bad soil, bad nutrients, or just not understanding the level of which the plant needs to grow. And we use a good potting mix. You have to start with a good potting mix in order to get your seeds started off right. We use Kellogg's Garden products, and that's available at your local Home Depot. They're a sponsor of our video series, but they're a phenomenal product that has a slow-release fertilizer, and that's key because these plants are going to sit in the cell or the cup for a number of weeks, and you need to supplement them with some type of nutrients in order for them to grow successfully.
Right, and you might be out and about, like, for example, at the local drugstore, and you'll see some 1 cubic bags of soil. I say that with sarcasm, for like $1 or something, right? And you're like, oh, this is a good deal. I can start my seeds in it. I'm just starting seeds. Who cares? Well, we did that once, and there's a reason why it's $1.
Yeah, it's basically you're growing in sand, very loose, granular mess. There's basically no soil in it whatsoever.
Right.
The water just permeates through it, just runs through it like it's a sieve. So there's a reason why, and you want good potting mix to retain moisture, to hold nutrients, as well as to get your plant off right.
Definitely.
We've talked about the light. We've talked about good soil. We've talked about the good seeds that we're purchasing, the reliable seeds that you know if you buy a pepper seed, it's going to be a pepper plant of the variety in which you want it to be. So other things that you need to know is temperature. Temperature is the important part of this whole thing. Outside, when it's warm, seeds are going to germinate when the soil is warm enough. Indoors, you want your temperature of your grow area to be about 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if you're in an unclimatized greenhouse, basement, or room, then you want your temperature, you need to supplement that warmth with something. It could be a heat mat. That's an additional expense, but you need that root system to be warm enough in order for those seeds to germinate. If the soil is wet and the soil is cold and you have seeds in there, the seeds are not going to germinate very well. And some instances, they will rot in the soil, just like if you put them outside too early, they're going to sit there and rot in the soil.
Right. So then you want to think about what you're going to start.
And when you're going to start it. When you come to starting seeds indoors, it's based on the frost date, the last average frost date in which you have in your area. So we want to talk about that. And you can find every variety has a different duration of period prior to that last average frost date in which you want to start those.
Right. So you want to think about that. Like we've already started our onion seeds because those take longer to develop. Sometimes you might not know, so you just do some different research. There's a lot of different resources online. Like, for example, with our tomato seeds, we figured out when we should start them now versus when we first starting tomato seeds, we started them way too early.
Right. 6 to 8 weeks before your last average frost date for the tomatoes. And then you want to, that doesn't mean when the frost date comes and goes, if the frost date was tomorrow, you can put them in the ground. That's not what that is representing. It has to be warm for those to be placed out, because if you place them out too early, they're going to not survive. Now, there are some plants, your cool weather crops, your onions, your leeks, your greens, your cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, that you can put out earlier that are tolerable of those cooler night temperatures than your warm weather summer crops. So you want to know that, and we're not going to go through all the list of here's all the things and when you should start them. Based on what you're wanting to grow, then you can start those at the appropriate time. Now, you don't have to start your seeds indoors. You can go to Blue Mel's Landscape and Garden Center and buy everything you need there. The disadvantage to doing that is the selection is not going to be as broad as if you were going to buy your own seeds and start your own plants. Like we heard in the last break, the Garden Fun Fact, there's about 10 to 25,000 different varieties of tomatoes available in the world, not all commercially available. But let's say there's, pick a number, 4,000 varieties available commercially from seed. Well, you're not going to get even 40 varieties or 50 varieties available at your local garden center. So this gives you a much broader sense of what you can start indoors, and you can be more selective of, hey, I like this, I like that, I don't like this.
Right. So even if you buy seedlings or start your own seeds, you want to make sure you're starting the right seeds and not starting some seeds. For example, like root crops, beets, radishes, help me out here, some root crops. Beets, radishes,
turnips,
rutabagas. All those are root crops, carrots. Yeah, you don't want to start those seeds. You don't want to start those seeds inside. It doesn't make sense. It's not efficient. And
the disruption of the transplant, when you transplant those plants outdoors, you're going to disrupt the roots, and the roots will not grow as they're intended. Plus, the speed of which the plant will germinate outdoors at the appropriate time when you plant it outdoors, and let's say you plant one of these root crops indoors and 2 weeks ahead of when you were going to plant it outdoors. If you were able to successfully transplant it outdoors, which is just tedious, and you plant that same seed outdoors at the same time that 2-week-old sprout that you plant at the same time, in about 3 weeks are going to be the same size. So just save your time, plant directly, which they call as direct sow, and put them outdoors. And again, you're going to disrupt the roots. You'll see YouTubers, and we've tried this before with beets. They say, oh, you can put beets out, start beets in trays, transplant them out. There's a whole process in which it's just easier to drop that seed in the ground than it is to put it in a container, harden it off. We'll talk about that in a moment here, and then get it to grow outdoors. So we want things to be simple, and we've made the mistake so you don't have to. Let's talk about what hardening off is and the mistakes that people make when it comes to that. And this does not apply if you buy your starts from a garden center.
So hardening off is basically where you get your seedlings acclimated to being outside. So for the week before you're going to put them outside, the first day you might put them out for a couple hours.
In shade.
In shade. The second day, a few more hours, and then you just kind of increase the time as you get closer to when you're going to put them and actually transplant them outside. If
you transplant them out, just take them today, bring them out of the grow room, put them in the ground, what happens is they go into tremendous shock. It's just like you jumping in an ice-cold lake. You may be able to recover from that, but when you go and take a small plant in a grow area, in your grow room that's 72 degrees, and you take it outside and that nighttime temperature is now 58 degrees, it goes through a tremendous shock that it may not recover. And we've had them where we thought we had them hardened off correctly, and they went through a shock, they've lost all their leaves, and then they didn't recover. So you want to keep that in mind. You want to do it right the first time so you don't have to try to go. If you started your season, you put all this time into it, you don't want to have to go back and start them again or try to find them somewhere after most people have sold out of them in the garden center. So that's just a small snippet of, is there anything else that we missed that we should cover here? And you don't want to start things like peas either.
Right.
You can start these things in what they call peat pots or peat pellets. There's two downsides to the peat pots and the peat pellets. One is the peat pellets are those expandable little nets of compacted peat moss that contain no nutrient value in them. So the seeds look good for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they start deteriorating in health because there's no nutrient value. So you have to supplement it with a manure tea or some type of liquid fertilizer, organic or inorganic. And you want to do that if you're going with a fertilizer. You want to go quarter strength of what the recommended rate is on the bottle. If you use a peat pot, that is a molded pot that's made out of peat moss, they're great. But if you plant them, you want to remove the bottom portion, just tear that peat pot apart at the bottom, and then tear the lip apart and then plant it, because that peat pot doesn't break down quick enough over the growing season to allow those roots to break through to get into the soil. So it will break down if you put it, for two years or whatever. It'll break down in time in that. But other than that, it doesn't work very well. Advantages and disadvantages to both of those.
Thank you for checking out the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show. For more, go to the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com for full-length in-studio video and podcast replay of Season 1. Season 2 underway and added weekly. Tweet us at TWVG Show or hashtag TWVG to be part of the program.